Intelligence. We were told it's the secret to a great life, the Holy Grail, the key to all that's desirable and fulfilling in life. But what if that same trait becomes a burden? What if intelligence isn't celebrated, but feared? But intelligence isn't just a trait, it's identity. Unlike wealth or strength, it's not something we have, it's something we are. So what happens when someone's intelligence questions the very things others take for granted? When deep thinkers speak, many don't listen out of curiosity. They listen to defend themselves, not because the thinker is arrogant, but because their mere presence forces others to confront their own mental limits. Psychologists call this reaction to superior intelligence the mirror effect, because it reflects back the limitations of those in the presence of the deep thinker. This, understandably, creates feelings of inadequacy and energizes the listener's defense mechanisms, because they see the deep thinker's presence as an attack on their truths. This is why, throughout history, the greatest minds weren't celebrated. They were shunned, decried, vilified, and attacked for presenting an alternative view of reality. Society's genetic imperative to stay safe is the reason philosophers and scientists and their ideas are rarely accepted during their lifetimes. But when they're dead, after they've suffered, been rejected, and humiliated, they are the champions, my friend. Society's hypocritical claim that it values intelligence and critical thinking flies in the face of the reality that it only values those qualities when they're widely accepted. When it's safe to do so, society presses the easy button. Although now celebrated and revered, these deep thinkers were regarded as intellectual terrorists in their lifetimes. Socrates, tried and found guilty of corrupting the youth of Athens and disrespecting the gods, chose death by poison rather than abandon his principles. His real crime was teaching people to think for themselves, rather than blindly accepting the status quo. Unusually, Socrates was offered a chance to escape, which he refused. Before drinking the poison, Socrates uttered these now immortal words, quote, "An unexamined life is not worth living." End quote. When Galileo's discovery that the earth revolved around the sun contradicted the Catholic Church's version of reality, he was branded a heretic and forced to publicly deny his discoveries under the threat of torture. He lived under house arrest for the majority of his life, his truths suppressed for almost a century. Nietzsche's claim that traditional morality was built on comforting lies was considered offensively radical. Nietzsche maintained that creating one's own values was the true source of strength. He was dismissed as mad. But today, those mad ideas on power, will, and morality shape modern philosophy. Nikola Tesla was a visionary thinker who dreamed of bringing free electrical energy to the world. His dream was realized, for profit, without his consent, by none other than Thomas Edison and the industrialist J.P. Morgan. They stole Tesla's ideas and made millions. Tesla died broke and alone in a hotel room. Alan Turing is regarded as the father of artificial intelligence. His cryptography and coding abilities helped end the Second World War and save millions of lives. British society honored Turing's contributions by chemically castrating him because he was gay. Turing committed suicide at age 41. A rare exception to the reality that the majority of deep thinkers were men was Hypatia of Alexandria, only the fourth woman in all of recorded Egyptian history to be accepted and respected as a philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer. Sadly, her teachings of scientific reasoning and logical thought in a male-dominated society inflamed a group of religious extremists who brutally murdered her in 415 BC. Each of these deep thinkers are poignant confirmations that their thoughts and ideas were too advanced for the time in which they lived. So, as history sadly proves that deep thinkers are not welcome, where does that leave you, if you're one of them? If you raise questions that provoke silence, if you revere logical reasoned thought, if you crave meaning and depth instead of small talk, status games, and polite dishonesty, does this mean you're destined to a life of eternal loneliness because you don't fit in? The short and honest answer is no. You're not the only deep thinker on the planet. You'll find your kindred souls in discussion groups, in unexpected encounters, and in books. You'll learn to observe and reflect on social conversations, and then decide whether or not a response is merited. Modern neuroscience proves it. When someone feels intellectually threatened, the amygdala, our fear and threat center, lights up, confirming that the mere presence of a deep thinker is not just emotional intimidation, but a primal survival response. We react to deep thinkers like we do to danger. For most of human history, being accepted was more important than being smart. Social harmony meant safety, and to be safe, you had to fit in. Tribes protected conformity, because rejection meant isolation, increasing vulnerability, and the eventual prospect of death. Even now, that instinct remains. This is why the majority of society today prefer entertainment over enlightenment. Comfort doesn't threaten. Familiarity reassures. Accepted beliefs protect. So what happens when someone disrupts that balance? They're seen as dangerous, not because they're wrong, but because they think too much too soon. Highly intelligent people in social situations unconsciously disrupt the flow because their presence challenges the tribe's ideas, norms, and dynamics, even if they say nothing. By unconsciously standing out in a society that values fitting in, deep thinkers often feel isolated. If you ever feel alone in your thoughts, you're not distanced from reality. You're simply seeing the world as it is. While the great majority see it as they would like it to be, and distract themselves with the familiar, safe, and comforting ideas, while they wait for the world of their dreams to appear. It's a curious paradox that while society values progress, which comes from visionary people with new ideas and perceptions, it shuns the very deep thinkers who can develop that progress. The reason is a question of biology. It's constructed to maintain stability. That's why social media is an endless tidal wave of shallow ideas, repetitive conversations, and simple ideas. This is simply human psychology. We're wired to want certainty and predictability. Thus, the majority of society seeks those outcomes through entertainment and entry-level social intercourse. Bottom line, we're genetically programmed to avoid discomfort. Psychologists call this reality cognitive ease. Translation, our easy button. Easy expends less mental energy than complicated. So the brain, as you would expect, takes the easy way out. That's why most people prefer to rationalize outdated beliefs and not challenge authority. That could mean change, and change, with all its uncertainties, is the boogeyman. Again, it's the easy button. Why risk rejection by jumping into the quicksand of change. Society doesn't fear intelligence. It fears what intelligence reveals. Charisma over depth, certainty over nuance. People admire confidence, even when it's wrong. They fear complexity, even when it's true. That's why populists, influencers, and motivational speakers go viral, while philosophers get ignored. They struggle to engage because they don't enrage, one of the surest ways to attract attention. But even in the rarest of circumstances, if they succeed in opening society's ear, how can they possibly communicate nuance and subtlety to an audience interested in the main points? A Stanford University study found that deep thinkers are more accepted one-on-one than in groups, because in private, people feel safe, less threatened by a one-on-one encounter. So they're more inclined to actually listen and contribute to the dialogue. But in a group situation, their emotional defense mechanisms amplify the threat response. They fear being outshined by the deep thinker's ideas, having their egos deflated, looking foolish. This defensive response is not a reaction to the intelligence of the speaker. It's a reaction to how the others in the group perceive them. Potential loss of social status is not an option. So they attack the thinker to preserve social standing. Psychologists have identified three main cognitive biases that further explain why society fears new ideas and those who present them. First, there's the Dunning-Kruger bias. Those with low ability think they know more, while the highly intelligent doubt themselves. The negative here is that the know less person, believing erroneously that they really know more, will reject new and unfamiliar ideas. The second bias is the backfire effect. When you challenge someone's beliefs, instead of backing down or debating the challenge, they cling harder to their truth. And lastly, the status quo bias. Comfort is easier than truth. So why disturb that comfort with potentially disruptive thoughts? Yes, it's the easy button again. In today's algorithm-driven world, deep thought doesn't trend. Emotion does. Anger, outrage, humor. When complex ideas are reduced to sound bites and one-minute videos, people are continually overexposed to the same ideas, making it virtually impossible for any discussion of depth to pierce the fireworks. Depth takes time. Social media doesn't do depth. Nothing is more hypocritical than society's claim that it values deep thought and inquisitive thinking, when in reality it advocates its rejection. Schools reward memorization, not questioning. Students who regurgitate facts and figures are regarded as successes, while those who pose questions are labeled as troublemakers. And when those students enter the workforce, it's the ones who salute the existing power structure and fit in that will be getting the keys to the executive washroom, not the troublemakers, no matter how innovative they may be. But conversely, in politics, being a troublemaker can be an advantage if you blame someone or something else for the public's problems and tell them what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. But the philosopher-author Schopenhauer didn't see intelligence as a gift. He saw it as a curse. Schopenhauer believed that most live under the will to live, which he described as a blind, irrational force that drives human behavior, prioritizing pleasure, comfort, and survival above all else. In contrast, highly intelligent individuals tend to function differently. Rather than following their instincts without thought, they cultivate what Schopenhauer termed the will to truth, an unquenchable thirst for understanding reality, even at the cost of discomfort. This distinction creates a significant gap between intellectuals and the broader society. While many people derive meaning from relationships, entertainment, and everyday pleasures, deep thinkers often experience disillusionment from such pursuits, perceiving them as distractions from profound existential inquiries. Schopenhauer believed that the pursuit of intelligence, while often leading to feelings of loneliness, allows deep thinkers to cope with their isolation by embracing solitude and finding connection with like-minded individuals. Such connections may be fostered, even if indirectly, through literature and philosophical engagement. Schopenhauer viewed intelligence as a double-edged sword, providing both strength and suffering. While it enhances one's ability to perceive reality with clarity, it can also create a separation from those who choose to embrace more comforting illusions. Schopenhauer viewed desire and ambition as illusions, arguing that many pursue wealth, power, and relationships, while those who engage in deeper reflection often seem detached or indifferent to societal norms. This perspective confirms why intellectually inclined individuals frequently experience feelings of misunderstanding, alienation, or even resentment from others. Their presence can challenge others to confront uncomfortable aspects of themselves, which most would rather ignore. Schopenhauer likened intelligence to an increased level of awareness, describing it as a dual-edged sword that can feel more burdensome than beneficial. He maintained that a high intellect often leads to social withdrawal. For the obvious reasons, the more one understands, the less one can overlook. Heightened awareness of the world's imperfections makes it increasingly challenging to find joy within it. Consequently, deeper contemplation can lead to increased isolation. In Schopenhauer's view, happiness and intelligence are inversely related. He suggested that ignorance, rather than wisdom, is the true path to happiness. This insight helps explain why many profound thinkers throughout history have faced challenges such as depression, existential dilemmas, and social seclusion. If Schopenhauer were alive today, I think he'd say, "Be proud of your intelligence. Don't hide it. Nourish it, and share it with those who also seek meaning and depth, those who reject artificiality and mindless chatter, those who, like you, are nourishing their will to truth." But don't waste it trying to reach the superficial. Cocooned in their endless carousel of comfort and convenience, they can't hear you. They're not ready for you. And sadly, most of them never will be. Some people will always be uncomfortable with the deep thinker's vision of the world, but that's no reason for deep thinkers to dilute or abandon their thoughts. Socrates didn't, nor did all the other visionaries we profiled here. They remained true to themselves, to their quest for the will to truth, regardless of the consequences. Without their contributions, our world would not have advanced to the degree it has. The unfortunate paradox is that society will always feel threatened by those with new ideas, but it can't advance without them. You have life's most precious gift, intellect, so appreciate their perspective and understanding it brings. Follow Schopenhauer's advice. Continue your journey on the will to truth, sharing insights with your fellow travelers. Seek solitude, revel in its sanctuary. Nourish yourself with the profound wisdom of the great deep thinkers you'll find in person and in books. Their thoughts are the boat that will carry you forward on your voyage to truth. But understanding isn't a curse, it's clarity, and clarity is freedom. So, if you feel misunderstood, alienated, avoided, remember this: you're not strange, disconnected, or antisocial. You're simply ahead of your time. So stay thoughtful, stay aware, nourish your will to truth, even if the world isn't ready yet.